10 years ago, on the night of October 31st, a small Midwestern town fell victim to an escaped killer. Under the cover of darkness, he carried out the most horrifying mass murder on record. And Halloween has never been the same.
Yeah, it's a solid 3 hours between the two of them, and we are live. Welcome to podcast part 3, the part 3 podcast. We're back, still stuck in the Halloween franchise for part 2 of what will be a 3-part series, fittingly. Thank you to everyone that will listen to our inaugural episode, and thanks for bearing with us as we sort of figure things out. We're figuring out how to edit and talk into mics and interact with human beings after years of being away from all of that. So we are back. I am Sam Charrington.
And I'm Will Morey.
That's Will Morey. And we are going to talk today about the other Halloween 3s, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, and Halloween H20 20 years later. Only this time, Halloween 1 and 2, they actually matter.
Yeah, this time, all the characters that you knew about from the original movies are, they're all dead. But, in Halloween 4 anyway, they're all dead.
They're not all dead. Loomis is, he's loose.
I stand corrected. Loomis is still alive. And trying desperately to kill Michael Myers in some way, shape, or form.
Don't go to Haddonfield, Michael.
Man, Pleasance just cranks it up to 11 on a dime, man.
Oh no, I unabashedly love Donald Pleasance in this era of the Halloween movies. He is playing to the cheap seats, and I think honestly you kind of need him in this franchise. Like, we'll get to Halloween Kills next time, but every line in Halloween Kills would be so much better if Donald Pleasance were saying it. Like, I know you haven't seen it yet, but I've seen it, and the line "Evil dies tonight" is uttered so many times, and all you want to do is hear him say "Evil dies tonight."
Yeah, you kind of want his, scream, or when he starts in, a quiet register, "Evil dies tonight!"
Yeah. You gotta blow out the mic there at the end. It's So Halloween 4, a little backstory. It came out in 1988. After Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, was not a box office success. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill walked away from the franchise. Weren't involved again until recently, and it all fell to Trancas International, the production company, Mustafa Akkad's company. And Mustafa and then his son Malik Akkad have been kind of the custodians of this franchise for its entirety. So you can kind of say that they're the ones that have steered it through its many different continuities and different distributors over the years. And so Halloween 4, like the title says, was just bringing Michael Myers back. This is the Force Awakens of the Halloween franchise. It's the soft reboot.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty correct in the way that it shakes out. It felt very much like a modern studio, like a modern franchise reboot. This watch for me.
Yeah, it's 10 years after the original Halloween takes place. In the interim, Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, got married, had a child, and she and her husband died in a car accident. So she's gone, leaving only promotional photos behind.
And it's shortly before the movie begins because her orphan daughter has moved in with, has been adopted by this other family.
Yes, right? Adopted or foster family.
Or foster, something like that.
But something like that. It wasn't like a sad foster situation, or even like an Angels in the Outfield situation. It seemed like she's pretty well settled.
Yeah,
still in her hometown. And I would say that that character, the character's name is Jamie Lloyd, uh, played by Danielle Harris, who in I think one of the best child actor performances in a movie. Like this movie works because of Danielle Harris.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. And particularly later on in the movie, some of the moments where she really has to like emote pure terror, she's just great. She's really
Yeah,
good in that kind of stuff. I wish the movie around her was just a little bit more interesting.
it's just a little tightened up. I would say
Yeah,
when it's good. I think this is dances with being the best Halloween sequel. Like
yeah,
there are some moments. The opening credits are great. Like just shots of like daylight shots of like Halloween farm equipment, essentially.
right.
That's selling it short, but it's there's moments where it's really on point, and then there's just some stuff that really drags.
Well, I mean, it's just like all the character interactions all just feels just like never ending small talk. And I know that that's kind of by design because that's kind of what the original Halloween is like, but I didn't care about any of these people and they just kept talking about nothing.
It was the first one I'd say that felt like scripty. Like it felt
Yeah.
like as we're both writers, it felt like, there were quips and exposition and they're like boxes that they had to check. Like you've
Yeah.
gotta, you gotta have the weird guard with the tooth at the asylum that gives the like the exposition recap dump because we
Jesus
also
ain't
have
got nothing to do with this place.
yeah, you never forget the faces. It's because also we have to explain why Michael and Loomis aren't dead after being firmly killed in
Right.
Halloween 2. They're to quote, it's an Austin Powers situation. It's they're still alive, only they're very badly burned.
Right.
It's yeah, like so it is very much it's Halloween. Michael's back and he's going after his closest only living relative. This is the era of Michael trying to kill the Myers bloodline.
For reasons.
Well,
Is it ever explained in the later
it's
movies? I can't remember.
it is explained. The thing, and this I think this leads into the problem with Michael Myers, and I noticed this problem with both this movie and Halloween H2O because they both have fantastic endings. Both of like
Yeah.
this movie has a great ending. Halloween H2O has a great ending, and the sequels immediately after them both backtrack on all of it to bring back Michael Myers. And the problem I think with Michael Myers is he's such a one-note character. Like
Right.
compared to like the other slashers. Freddy Krueger is, he's an actual person. He's got a personality. He's got jokes. He lives in a fantasy world. You have Robert Englund playing him.
Well, and there are rules to Freddy too that you can play with.
Yeah,
Whereas Michael Myers, half the time in the sequels anyway, because in the first movie it doesn't really matter, but in the
yeah.
sequels you're kind of like, why is he doing this?
Exactly. That's exactly my point cuz like people didn't like that when they establish in part 2 that he's Laurie's brother, and when they undid that they still then in like Halloween 2018 they still had to bend over backwards to explain why he and Laurie would even cross paths.
Right.
It's and like I think that it's compared to something like Jason has a backstory and an origin, and there are rules with Jason even though it changes all over the place. It's like if you don't go to Crystal Lake you're gonna be fine. Jason's not gonna come get you.
Right.
You don't go to Texas, Leatherface isn't gonna come get you. Michael, it's scary in single movies for him to be this force of evil and death, but you can't stretch that out without trying to explain it, and better than there's no explanation that's better than no explanation at all,
Right.
but no explanation at all isn't sustainable for 13 movies.
Exactly. Yeah, that's sort of the problem. And it's like the Jaws sequels where they sort of bend over backwards to explain why the sharks are trying to kill people. Like it's
Yeah.
just,
And this is even tougher because it's the same shark every time.
right, exactly.
Like both this and H2O, like this sets up at the end of the movie that Daniel Harris is going to be the new killer. Like
Right.
Michael's evil has been passed on. H2O in one of the original drafts was going to have a copycat killer in it. And we'll get to H2O and how it's also very much of the Scream era of horror movies.
Well, it's actually kind of the two Halloween 4 and H2O are sort of kind of similar in the way because Halloween 4 is aping so many of the slasher movies that Halloween inspired. And then you get to H2O, which is aping Scream, at the time. So they're trying to like cash in on the trend that the original Halloween sort of created.
And like I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because I have a lot of notes on Halloween 4, such as as usual, ones I don't remember why, like, oh, uh, mom, do you want an oinker for a daughter?
That's right. Yeah. I wrote that down too. You can't kill damnation; it won't die like a man does. That was one of my favorite lines.
Yeah, was that
The weird guy who gives Loomis a ride.
I liked that scene actually because the Reverend is played by like he's like that guy. He's been
Yeah.
in everything. He's the old rich husband in Best in Show.
That's right.
He's in Wedding Singer. He's at the bar in Wedding Singer. They rip your heart out of your ass. Like he's great, but I also like there's that little moment at the end of that scene where he's just starts singing and Loomis just kind of gives a little smile because he's like, this guy gets it. Like I feel like I'm with someone who finally gets it.
Yeah.
Like who's as crazy as I am. But yeah, Loomis, in addition to Daniel Harris, Loomis, this is like what I would call like the Loomis era, the Donald Pleasance era of the franchise, where Jamie Lee Curtis is gone and Donald Pleasance is the legacy actor from the original. And he is hamming it up. This one,
Oh
and even
boy.
more so in Halloween 5. But I'd say it's he's kind of an essential character to balance both Daniel Harris, who's very grounded and very realistic, and to balance Michael, who is such a non-entity.
Right.
Like not in like a good and a bad way. He's the one that you is telling you because he's right. Everything he says, he's a crazy like burn victim with a limp who is screaming about this like, he's evil on two legs, nonsense, but he's absolutely right. And then he has these moments where he brings it down. He brings the energy down and he's like really effective. There's that scene in the diner where he confronts Michael and he has that line where he's like, if you want another victim, take me. Leave those
Right.
people
Yeah.
alone. Like there's some really good moments like that.
Well, when he catches up with Daniel Harris when she's running after she thinks Rachel has died, he runs into her and she's just like, I want to go home, and he's like, no, 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 where's the schoolhouse? But he's so like warm and genuine with her,
Yeah.
which is just so like at odds with his like just eating the scenery around his
Yeah.
performance.
And I think him and Daniel Harris make this movie work and get you past the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis has died off screen. It would feel like Alien 3 if not for
Right.
those two performances. It would feel like
Yeah.
a betrayal.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think my problems with the movie are more that just like not a lot happened. It's kind of like Halloween 3 in that way. Like not a lot not a lot
Yeah,
happens
it's
until everything happens.
a lot of dead air, but it's very much it hits all the like slasher movie cliches
Oh
and all
yeah,
the cliches of a Halloween, any movie about the holiday Halloween. Like
yeah.
it's when you were growing up, and you're much older than me, like 2 years older than me. uh did like was there ever that thing of like all the parents are going to the adult party and the kids are just left to their own devices?
I feel like that was a vestige of some of like a the generation before us, because there's like a bunch of movies that I can think of that I grew up that had that, but my parents never went to a Halloween party for adults.
No, it's no, it's such a device. Like Hocus Pocus does it
Hocus
too.
Pocus is the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
And like I can think of a few others like that. Like it's certainly
Did
like
Ernest Scared Stupid do something like that? Like I feel like those types of family movies in particular kind of played on that trope.
Will, I have to confess I've never seen Ernest Scared Stupid.
Oh,
Is it the third one in the franchise? Because we can add it to the list. It's like the characters are all good in this. They're all smart. Like the sheriff believes Loomis pretty quickly. Like even the mob, the like at the drunken mob at the end is like very like when they're like we have to get out of town and it's like
and they're
that
like,
sounds sensible to me.
yeah,
Leave him to the
you're
cops.
right. Let's
you
go.
know?
Yeah, there's none of that horror movie cliche where everyone's like, "You're full of crap, crazy old person with a cane." Everyone's like, "Oh no, you know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. No, we got to deal with this."
It's which you get more of in Halloween Kills. Like you'll get to compare this drunken angry mob to that drunken angry mob and see how they do.
Yeah.
It's so I have like it's so many of these movies work overtime to justify their existence because this is a great reboot, I would say, as reboots go, in this like soft reboots go, but yeah, where do you go?
I mean, I think that that's kind of where they ended up, and they're like, well, we'll just pass the evil on. And I think, obviously they were kind of too gun shy to do it, but I think there would be a legitimate fun if Halloween 5 was Danielle Harris running around killing people.
Yeah, like
Loomis
like
is chasing her, and
the cycle beginneth again.
Yeah. But obviously the cash cow was Michael Myers. So.
Yeah, that's not so it was not what they wanted. And then they tried to explain why Michael is evil and they introduced the cult of Thorn and
right, that's right.
And and then in Halloween 6 they try to explain that and it just gets completely nuts. And it's
all I remember about Halloween 6 is Paul Rudd narrating something about being a cultist, and I don't remember much else. But
yeah, it's him. You've got like a Howard Stern-esque radio host. That was that one is also very much a product of 1995.
Right.
And Weinstein meddling.
And Pleasance is sort of in the process of dying on screen too. So it's
if you watch the producer's cut, you get more of Donald Pleasance, and in that one, he's much more genteel. He's like he's mellowed out in his old age, and it's like the movie that one starts with him like he's retired. He's sort of made peace with like that Michael is dead, and you kind of like him, and then at the end, it all goes to shit. But
right.
That movie is a podcast unto itself. Michael hates dogs.
He really does. He really hates dogs.
He hates dogs. Poor Sunday.
Yeah.
And he was like a good boy. Like that dog was clearly like a real good boy. Like just a fluffy golden good boy, and I felt terrible for him,
Oh, and back to the I'm flipping through my notes, back to Donald Pleasance being genuine and warm. One line that stuck out to me is, "They've survived this ordeal, they'll survive its memory."
Yeah. Then that right after that, no. Everyone's reactions on the staircase in that final shot are great because Donald Pleasance, sensibly the only character in this entire franchise that is just like, shoot the killer in the head. Try as he might. He goes to shoot Jamie. The sheriff stops him, but then the sheriff looks and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Because Jamie's standing at the top of the stairs with scissors and covered in blood. And then the dad and Rachel, the sister, run in. It's so good. almost funny, but it's kind of perfect.
Yeah, it was like funny, but also kind of super disturbing too.
Yeah, it's a really, if you look at the ending of this movie, and the same with H2O without the context of the movie that followed it, they're really effective endings, and I'd say for the most part pretty effective movies as well. They're the,
Yeah,
I think, the closest, and I'd put Halloween 2018 in this camp a little bit as well, at being like the closest you get to like a nice single movie Michael Myers sequel. Like it's like
yeah.
the most you can only get, like I'd say, yeah, this franchise proves you only have about 3 movies of gas in the tank for Michael Myers, and
Before it
2 of,
all just
yeah,
yeah.
and maybe only 2 movies if you choose to ignore Halloween 2 and go straight from Halloween to Halloween 2018.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's yeah, that's the problem. I think with the whole with bringing Michael Myers back, if you're not gonna do, I don't know, something with him. I mean, this was my problem with Halloween 2018. Not that it's really a bad movie; it just didn't really click for me because I didn't understand why Michael Myers was doing it, and that works for your first movie to not have sort of a motivation, but just having this sort of unstoppable killing machine coming back for literally no reason, just
Yeah,
because it's Halloween and he just escapes and wants to go after Jamie Lee Curtis. I
and
don't
it's,
know.
he
It
doesn't
just
even want to go after Jamie Lee Curtis, in that he's got
oh,
a
that's right.
like
That's right.
the doctor is like he's
Oh, right, right,
it's
right.
it's
I
it's
forgot.
it's let them fight.
Right, right.
And unfortunately you take away the sibling angle, and that's the truth. There's a moment in Halloween 2018 where Michael looks at Jamie Lee Curtis and is kind of like, oh, we've met before, like he does the little head tilt thing.
Yeah,
Uh, and it's if you don't have the sibling angle, yeah, Michael is almost too blank a slate, which
right.
is why we haven't gotten to them, because there's no third one. The Rob Zombie movies. Rob
That's right.
Zombie, if you're gonna do Michael Myers, yeah, you kind of. I'm not a huge fan of those movies, but yeah, you do kind of have to just go back and start from scratch and give him
Yeah,
like, and spend an hour and a half of of your remake just,
fleshing him
yeah,
out. Yeah.
giving the backstory before you get to Halloween proper.
I haven't seen Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, but Halloween 1 I found sort of annoying. And it's one of those things where this is like Rob Zombie's shtick, and it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. But his whole thing of, I'm going to humanize the monsters, and then they're going to do something truly horrific, and you're going to feel bad about it.
Yeah, I think,
It was a little tough to swallow, especially when the last half, like 30, 45 minutes, whatever it is, of the first of Rob Zombie's Halloween is just a speed run of the original Halloween.
you know, if you watched Halloween 4 and said, I feel like Danielle Harris wasn't brutalized enough, Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween movies are the movies for you.
That's right. I forgot she's in those. That's
Yeah,
right. Man.
no, that's the thing. The Rob Zombie movies, I think certainly the first one, it's like, yeah, give me almost a movie's worth of like filling in that gap. The Smith's Grove era, when he's in there with Loomis trying to get to him, make that, flesh that relationship out. But it's the problem with the Rob Zombie movies, and again, it's completely whether or not you're into Rob Zombie's style. It
Yeah.
the parade of cameos, every character is an asshole.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Halloween 2 doubles down on this, triples down on this. Like Halloween 2 is, it's like a reverse of the Devil's Rejects movies, in that it's like Halloween remake is Devil's Rejects, where it's kind of grounded. Halloween 2 is House of a Thousand Corpses. It's just nuts.
Right.
And it's like he's made Michael Myers, feel like a human being to a degree. But I just don't know
Well,
if he's the guy. I don't. It's like I want it. I would want that. I just don't know if those were the movies I would have wanted.
yeah, I mean, it just you just run into this again. You just run into this problem of humanizing a horrible monster, and I know that like that's kind of what Rob Zombie's doing. Is he's like, hey, you kind of sympathize with this guy. Oh no, you don't.
Yeah, no,
But
it
yeah,
Yeah,
It's weird to do it with Michael Myers.
yeah, it's a weird one to do it with, but honestly, I think it all lends itself to there's only about 3 movies worth of mojo you can get from Michael Myers. And that's why this is a franchise with 5 continuities.
That's right. Yeah. Oh man, 5
Yeah,
continuities.
5. You got
Oh,
Halloween 2, Halloween 4, 5, 6. Halloween 3 is its own thing. You got Halloween 2, H20 Resurrection,
oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Halloween, the Rob Zombie Halloweens, and Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and then Halloween Ends. So, and then presumably after that, it's going to be Halloween into the Michaelverse because you have a multiverse unto itself with
But it
these.
would but it would all just be a bunch of people in white masks sort of staring at each other.
Malcolm McDowell meets CGI
Yeah,
Donald Pleasance.
right. Yeah.
It's yeah, there are more eras of Michael Myers than there are of Godzilla, and Godzilla's been around since the
Longer.
50s.
Yeah, that's about right.
And I think it's the problem with the franchise is it's almost it wants to have that liberating dumbness of the Friday the 13th movies where continuity doesn't really matter and the character is so stock and so cliched that you really can just kind of tell that same campfire story over and over and just with a different coat of paint. Um, but Halloween 1978 is so damn good
Right.
that it's like you want to do it justice.
Right. I mean, it's not like Friday the 13th, which was just sort of a bunch of people in the woods being like, "We're going to make this slasher movie," and
Yeah.
it just became popular. And A Nightmare on Elm Street sort of it has its legacy too, um, But I don't know. It's not as good as the original Halloween, I think.
No, I mean the original Halloween, I'd say uh Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think, has a similar dilemma, but there are way less Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, and they're spread out over way more time.
But they're also a lot weirder. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, but I know that movie is just sort of like
Oh, Will,
it's just crazy
it's so
times.
crazy. It's when we do podcast part 2, the part 2 podcast, we're going to watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. For this one, you'll have to settle for Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, starring Viggo Mortensen.
Oh, and is it the fourth one with Matthew McConaughey? Or
Yes,
is that
that's the return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, depending on
okay?
which version you watch. Yeah, no, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 has it's got Viggo Mortensen and Ken Foree's in it too. So
Ooh,
yeah, so it's pretty bad, but not as bad as you'd think. Yeah, you know.
heartily recommend. So, I mean, in the last one, we talked about when you first saw it. When did you first see Halloween 4 before we move on to H2O?
Similar to Halloween 3, I saw this one. This was like 3, 4, 5, and 6 were on Encore constantly. So I think I saw this one almost all the way through. So I knew this one like pretty well. I feel like this is the sequel I maybe have seen the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I might have a little bit more of a fondness for it. But yeah, so I knew this one. I knew this is the franchise. I think I knew that oh, this is the franchise where Donald Pleasance is in a bunch of them because I knew this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what about you?
Well, I had seen bits and pieces of it on cable, and I didn't, because when I had a big slasher phase right around when Scream came out, which we'll talk about a little later when we get to H2O. I watched a bunch of the Halloween movies, but this one and 5 weren't available at my local Blockbuster. So I think I only watched Halloween, Halloween 2, and Halloween 6. So I never,
what a trilogy.
yeah, I never got around to this one until way later. And I don't know if you remember this, Sam. But do you remember that one like rainy weekend when Daniel, because we were all living together at the time, when Daniel was dealing with a breakup, and we just decided to watch all the Halloween movies.
But we were
All the
alternate.
Halloween sequels. No,
Were
we were
we?
alternating between the Highlanders movies, weren't
That's
we?
right. Yes, it was Highlander and Halloween, and yes, I think we watched that. We definitely watched 4
Yes.
when we did
Yes.
that. Oh my god, yes, I completely blocked that memory out. I get the Halloween movies when I was growing up. Like when I lived in Boston, we would go to Video Smith on Harvard Street, and they had the horror section. So like once my dad took my sister to like the kids section to rent Milo and Otis, I would go to the horror section, and they had all the Jason movies and all the Freddy movies, and they just had
Yeah.
those covers that made them seem like really forbidden and edgy. But for whatever reason, the Halloween movies never grabbed me the same way. I never like desired to check them out. So I
Yeah.
got to them way later.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of the same way as a kid because I'd walk through the horror section and the Halloween movies. The posters were never all that evocative. I
Yeah.
guess it was just always like the mask and a knife
Yeah.
or some variation of that. The Nightmare on Elm Street movies, those posters always like intrigued me to no
Yeah.
end because
Because
there was all
and
sorts
again,
of loopy shit going on.
yeah,
in
this
them.
loopy shit. Freddy's on them, and Freddy's
Yeah.
just and you just knew the Friday the 13th ones were like you're not supposed to watch these.
They're sleazy. Yeah,
They're
it was like- it
sleazy.
was like-
There's
yeah.
they've got boobs. You know, it's
Well, anything more you want to say about Halloween 4 before?
no. I think
before we move on.
much like our next movie, it's more of a soft reboot than it is a sequel. I'd say more
Yeah.
so for this one. And I think it, for the most part, works as a movie, and its shortcomings are more just pacing and like some structural stuff. But I think it's a fun watch. If you want Donald Pleasance, if you want that era of Halloween, Donald Pleasance playing to the cheap seats, this is probably the best one of those.
Yes, I think I'd say that's accurate. And the last thing I want to say is cops do it by the book.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Which brings us another 10 years into the future to 1998. It's the Clinton years. This is the Clinton years Halloween.
Hey.
Halloween H20, 20 years later. So this was Halloween 6 had come out, was distributed by the Weinsteins. That was kind of like the franchise had completely sputtered out. So they wanted initially to make Halloween 7, and that was going to be direct to video. It was kind of Halloween was going to go the Hellraiser and Leprechaun route. But then the 20th anniversary came along, and they got Jamie Lee Curtis to come back, and then it became a real movie. And that's where we get Halloween H2O, which very much feels like Halloween 2018, but before Halloween 2018. It is a tale of two different depictions of someone with post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's an odd duck of a movie. It came out in 98. It came out 2 years after Scream. It's got Weinstein Dimension Scream fingerprints all over it. Patrick Lussier, who directed or edited the Scream movies and would go on to direct the My Bloody Valentine remake, edited this. And it's directed by Steve Miner, who did Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell like a lot of the DNA of the 2018 movie is in here. Like a lot of the concepts that, particularly pertaining to Laurie, that it sort of explored with that character are I think they're in some ways better explored in the 2018 movie. I just don't think that movie is as intriguing as this one.
But I honestly feel like this Laurie feels like a more realistic depiction, and like as someone, without getting into it too much, has dealt with mental health issues, it is like, yeah, you can lead a normal life and have a family and still like have a just she's clearly an alcoholic. She's on a ton of medications. You know, it's driving a wedge between her and her son. And it also lends itself to kind of an arc in the movie, because she goes from just the first time you see her, she's in bed and she's just screaming from a nightmare, and then by the end of the movie, she's an axe wielding badass.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, it's sort of turning the movie arc of H2O is turning Laurie Strode into Sarah Connor in a way, and then in the 2018 movie, she's kind of already had that. It feels
Yeah,
like
it's no one in the 2018 one has an arc except like Laurie's Donald Pleasance now, and
right.
everyone just she's right, and everyone else is going to find out she's right. I don't.
Right.
Yeah, this is just everything about this movie is super 90s. You got
Super
like
90s Josh Hartnett running
uh
around.
Dawson's Creek era Michelle Williams is in it.
Yeah.
Uh LL Cool J is an erotic novelist, which he honestly the first time you see him, he feels like one of those non sequitur characters in the newer Halloween movies.
Yeah, is who's the kid who's the other guy of the foursome? Is it
Adam
Sean?
Hahn Bird.
Oh,
He's my buddy.
that's right.
You've met him. He was at my wedding.
That's right. He wasn't the one who got killed with the ice skate.
Oh no, that's Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
But it wasn't Joseph Gordon-Levitt's buddy.
Oh, I don't know who that was.
Okay, all right.
No, Charlie, Josh Hartnett's friend, is played by Adam Hahn Bird, who prior to this, people would probably know he was Little Man Tate. He was young Robin Williams in Jumanji, and he's a good friend of mine and Elise's, my wife. And he has some very good corpse acting in this. He's got to play dead for a protracted sequence, and it's some good stuff. Gets a check plus in my notes. But yes, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's in this, and he dies watching Plan 9 from Outer Space.
That's right.
Which I never noticed before this time.
One of the things that I like about this movie too is they clearly don't have much of a budget, but the setting is really clever of having sort of the school shut down. It gives sort of a lot of interesting set pieces and things.
It's the opposite of Halloween 4, in which I think Halloween 4 had good kills but kind of a cliched setting. This one, the kills aren't as impressive, but the set pieces are really cool.
Cool, yeah.
It's the only sequel not set in Haddonfield. You don't go to Haddonfield at all in this movie.
I didn't see Halloween Resurrection. Do they go to Haddonfield in that one?
Oh, it's entirely set inside the Myers house.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because it's like a reality show.
It's a reality webcast. It's Dangertainment, hosted by Busta Rhymes.
Right.
There's very little Halloween in this movie, though.
Yeah.
They're going on a school trip to Yosemite on Halloween night.
Yeah.
Like, the whole school just empties out to go to Yosemite for a camping trip, I assume. On Halloween, there's no Halloween decorations anywhere in the school. The kids have a party, and it's a Halloween party, but there's no I don't know. It's very strange because it's not like Jamie Lee Curtis banned Halloween at the school.
Right.
It's just it feels like that's like a vestige of a prior script.
It definitely feels like there were like 3 or 4 different scripts that were just smashed together. And it
was the same writer for all of it.
Oh, really?
He had to keep writing and rewriting this script. So good on him. But yeah, I know that they had a bunch of different endings. They filmed stuff that was used in Resurrection, film all the stuff that shows that Michael's not really dead.
Right. But you can see in sort of the background, like, make it more like Scream. Make it more like Scream. Yeah. Come on, make it more like Scream. And with the jokes and the soundtrack,
they're watching Scream 2 in it. The girls are watching Scream 2. Now which leads to a whole question of Halloween is mentioned and exists in the Scream movies. So, but yet the Scream movies exist in Halloween.
So what are they watching? What are they talking about in Scream as opposed to Halloween? It's like in Last Action Hero where they go to the video store and Sylvester Stallone is in Terminator 2.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Halloween's like a true crime movie like Zodiac. Right. Yeah. in the Scream in the Screamverse.
And the Scream, which makes sense because Stab is such a big deal there. So maybe it's like a thing.
Yeah. They like horror movies based on real events.
So
we're giving it
if we're giving it way more thought
we're giving
than
it more
anyone
thought than they ever did. That's
they
for
ever did.
sure.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also one of those in my memory. H2O it's a lot longer and there's a lot more in it, and
It's a brisk
it's
86 minutes.
yeah,
You're in the
it's super
third act
short.
with like 20 minutes to go.
Yeah,
It's not boring. You have Jamie Lee Curtis leading this movie, and she's obviously great, and therefore you're not relying on like trying to care about Michael Myers.
right.
He's just
Which is crucial. I mean, I think that's the thing. I mean, and even like Josh Hartnett and Michelle Williams and his the group of friends, they're all likable people, and you kind of want to see them live, which
yeah.
helps a lot. And Michael Myers is sort of just this. It feels more like he does in the first movie, even though his motivation is I'm going to kill my sister again.
But that
Um,
doesn't like you could take that element out of the movie and it would still work. I think
right,
it's like the
exactly,
sibling thing has only ever existed to justify why he gives a shit about Jamie Lee Curtis
right,
at all.
exactly.
Why he does anything.
Or what? Yeah, where he tries to find her. Or, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You get Michael Michael hates dogs, but he loves vintage cars.
That's right.
He's driving a nice like green muscle car at the beginning of this movie that he just has. I don't know where he got it, but he loves that, and then he steals that like weird like like Model T van looking thing from the mom and the daughter at the rest stop.
Oh, right.
Like
Yeah,
this
I forgot about that.
weird old creepy like they're driving like the Dragula car. It's so weird. It's like I think about it every time I watch this. I'm like, what is that car? And why does this normal mom, have it? But yeah, this feels very much like this hits like Halloween 4. This hits a lot of the cliches. It
Right.
hits a lot of the like how it's definitely also very actively homaging air quotes moments from the first one. You have like Michelle Williams looking out the window in class. You have
Right.
Michael falling off the like ledge. All those beats get hit. And it's like it feels like again, feels less like a sequel and more like a greatest hits. And
Yeah.
and they very definitively ended it again. This like he's dead at the end of this movie.
Right. And so, did it do well enough that they were just like, "All right, we'll make another one"? Or
Well, you would
how
think that,
long
but
was that?
Halloween
How long? Yeah,
4
how long was the
years.
gap? 4 years.
It did
Weird.
do well. It was a big success. And then Halloween Resurrection didn't come out until 2002.
That is weird. That's very
It's
strange.
it's very strange. Halloween Resurrection is it's I mean, you have
Right.
Busta Rhymes doing kung fu fighting Michael Myers.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yikes. It is funny that as a franchise, Halloween ping pongs between being like, well, we're gonna be like dumb fun, but we're like classy. We're good. We're gonna get Jamie Lee Curtis.
Like the original Halloween is like I would call it the classiest slasher movie. It's not gory. It's
Yeah.
pure suspense. It looks beautiful. So
Yeah.
you have that poster with the pumpkin turning into the knife is iconic. It has this very. It comes from this yeah, I'd say pedigree is the word. But they've been trying to replicate that forever, and they just haven't been able to.
Yeah. Yeah. As you said, it's just there's only so much gas in this tank that you can do, and
Yeah, but yeah, some great moments in H2O. Like it's one of those ones I remember like the images from it when it
right
came out. Her looking at Michael through the window.
through the reflection.
That
Yeah.
sequence is one of the best in the franchise, in my opinion. When they're behind the gate and he's swiping his knife back and forth trying to get them. It's just such a well done set piece, and it's just
Yeah.
really simple but very effective. And then it's it shows Michael being crafty. Like he's not Jason. He knows how to you know he's like he can put 1 and 2 and 3 together. But it's again, it's this one's I'd say this is a really good movie. I really enjoy this movie.
Well, and it actually it does feel like the third movie, because when I first saw this, I saw it on video. I rented it, And then I bought it, and I bought it along with the VHS tapes of Halloween 1 and 2. And it actually, like, you watch all three, and it does feel like a little trilogy in a way.
Yeah.
And it does a pretty good job of sort of closing a story.
Yeah, it gives Laurie, it's the most arc Laurie gets in three movies is 1,
Right.
2, and 3.
Right.
Even, and like I'd say 2 is probably the weak link in there, because
Yeah.
like in that movie, there's never a moment where she finds out that's her brother.
Yes. Yeah.
No one ever tells her. She's completely sidelined for most of Halloween
Right.
2.
She's just kind of hanging out in the hospital.
Yeah.
I think Halloween 2 looms larger in my memory as a better movie than it. I don't think I've seen it since I was a kid.
It's not bad.
Like a teenager, but
it's not bad, but it has a lot of the shortcomings that the first one avoids.
Right.
It's got the kind of sleazier element, like it's got more nudity, it's got more overt gore. There's one moment that's completely unrelated to the plot that's like a gore moment that is just so like it's a kid with a bit into a candy and there's a razor in it, and he's
right.
like,
That's
yeah,
right.
it's so
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
nowhere in that movie, and it's like the one cringe moment for me in Halloween 2.
Yeah.
And it is trying to expand the mythology of the franchise to explain why Michael Myers is doing what he's doing.
Right. Yeah. So Sam, when did you first see this one? Did you
I saw this
see it on
one.
cable, or?
I think I rented it. I think it was just, this was during that phase in like middle school and high school when I was allowed to rent rated R movies, and I would just, I would rent this. I rented, the Evil Dead movies.
Yeah.
It was just like something I was like, oh, I'll watch Halloween H20. I've never seen it, and it was good. I rented that, and then I got Resurrection from the library, and that was interesting. But yeah, this one, I feel like this one's just always been around. There was never a period where it came out, and I remember it was like kind of a big deal. Like they pushed it up, they really marketed the movie, and then it came out and it was good, and it was just something you like watched at some point.
Yeah.
It'd be on at a friend's house. Like it was like the Scream movies were the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you watched Scream with a friend 650,000 times between 1996 and like 2004.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, I mean, I think we've nailed it. I think it's that, you can only get to 3 movies with Michael Myers before the franchise falls apart like the Blues Brothers car.
Or you just have to start introducing some really bizarre elements, either different family members if you're going to go that route, or a weird cult, or like something along those lines. Or, I don't know what Rob Zombie had planned for. I'm sure he had a Halloween 3 in his head.
He did, but again, without, spoiler, Michael, again, pretty definitively dead at the end of Halloween 2. So it's like, I mean, he does set it like he kind of does the end of Halloween 4, but it's his director's cut is like all the characters are dead pretty much. So it's they were planning, I think, a Halloween 3 at one point, and I think it was going to be in 3D, and I think Patrick Lussier was gonna direct it because he'd done My Bloody Valentine, and it was during like the 3D craze. But I think nothing happened, and the remake craze kind of petered out.
Well, and then there were problems with the rights too. Didn't the Weinsteins like lose the rights or something like that?
Yeah,
or was it just the implosion of Miramax?
I think it was a bit of both. I think Dimension. It was. I wonder if the rights didn't go with the Weinsteins. They might have stayed with Miramax.
Oh, maybe.
Because the Weinsteins left Miramax and started the Weinstein Company. I think it was just one of those things where like the franchise kind of went dormant, and in that time also Mustafa Akkad died.
That's right.
He was killed in the terrorist bombing. So I think they just didn't know what to do with it, and then we entered the nostalgia era, and they got John Carpenter to come back, and they got Jamie Lee Curtis to come back again. And, wisely, again, they were like, we got to start over. We got to start from scratch. Let's clean the deck. And, I think all their instincts were right for Halloween 2018. if you must make more Michael Myers movies, you
Right.
kind of got to just flush the system.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think their problems were they didn't want to keep the brother-sister element, so they had to figure out a way to justify the movie's
Right.
existence.
And that's where all roads lead to madness with Michael Myers.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to your thoughts on Halloween Kills, which
Yeah,
is
I'm intrigued to watch it. Like I said, I didn't love Halloween 2018. I didn't hate it, but it just I don't know, something about it. Just I saw it twice in the theater because I thought like the first time I was just in a bad mood or something like that. But then I saw it the second time. I was like, no, it just didn't click with me. So
yeah,
I
it's
don't
got
know.
some elements in it that I really like some stylistic choices.
I mean, and
Like,
it looks fucking great
yeah,
too. I
no,
mean, it looks so good. But
it's yeah, it looks like a real movie. It
yeah,
looks gorgeous. Like
yeah,
I mean, it's David Gordon Green. He's a
yeah.
very talented director who, and I know it's hard to make even a bad looking movie, but yeah, it it was, if you must keep making these movies, it was probably what the franchise needed.
Yeah.
But there's just some really weird choices in Halloween Kills.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah, well, on that note, yeah, so we got one more week of the Halloween verse with Halloween Kills, and then we're going to be moving on. And I think we're going to probably have room to watch just a fun movie. Just pick one from the list before we do Spider-Man 3 and The Matrix Revolutions.
Yeah.
So
Ooh, those are exciting. Yeah. I think I have my choice. I'd like to do RoboCop 3.
I was genuinely hoping you'd say that.
And it's a silly, fun movie.
Yeah, it's going to be painless, that's for sure.
Yeah, it'll be painless. We will be doing Ghostbusters Afterlife, but at the moment, I do not feel comfortable going to a movie theater. So
Yeah.
we'll do Ghostbusters Afterlife at some point.
Yeah,
we'll do.
I had some of it aggressively spoiled for me today.
Oh, good.
So I have now it'll be more like, when is that part gonna happen as I'm watching the movie? But yes, we will get to Ghostbusters Afterlife soon enough, because we'll be doing that and the Paul Feig Ghostbusters, because they're both soft reboots.
Soft reboots,
sort of.
And I guess technically, Ghostbusters Answer the Call takes place just in an alternate dimension, right?
Yes,
the
the comics touch upon that in a fun way.
So next week is Halloween Kills, and then the week after that we'll do RoboCop 3, and then Spider-Man 3 and Matrix Revolutions.
Yeah, and to everyone, please follow us on Twitter. We're at Podcast Part 3. We don't have like a web page yet, but we'll be sure to post where you can listen, where you can subscribe. We'll get us up on iTunes and Stitcher and all wherever podcasts are sold. As always, Will, it's a delight and a pleasure to be up into the wee hours of the morning talking about just truly middling slasher sequels with you. I can't wait to do it, because they constitute about a third of our master list of part threes. We have so many more to look forward to.
Yes.
What a time to be alive.
What a time.
All right. Well, until next time, everyone, I am Sam Charrington.
And I'm Will Morey.
And this has been Podcast Part 3, the Part 3 podcast. Never watch Halloween movies alone. It's much more fun with friends. And definitely check out Halloween 6 if you haven't, because it's got Paul Rudd in it, and that's fun. But have a great night, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Adios.